They matched up better on paper last year. Will they match up better on the field this time around in Ann Arbor? Talking Michigan, Ohio State at the Big House. We got Von Lozon from Mason Brew, the SB Nation platform for Michigan football, on the line to talk the Wolverines' strategy to upset the Buckeyes. Von, we appreciate you stopping by. How you doing today?
Doing well, Mark. Thanks for having me on. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. Appreciate the time and the Michigan football talk. Of course, this is the game. So before we dive into the 2019 matchup, what is your take on this rivalry? What does it mean to you? How do you feel about it in regards to its unique aspect and its national prominence?
It means a lot to me. It means a lot to Michigan fans. I would imagine it means a lot to Ohio State fans, given all the camaraderie and all the chirping that goes on social media nowadays with them blocking out the M's and all that stuff. So it's one of the finest rivalries in not just college football, but all sports, in my opinion. It's one of those games that you really get up for and you spend time really getting ready for and watching. This is a game that you set aside time to watch, especially this year. It's going to be a great game. I would imagine at the Big House, number 10 Michigan, number 2 Ohio State. I'm excited. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm ready for the game.
Yeah, certainly something sets it apart because it gets the best TV ratings and most people to the stadium each and every year consistently, more than any other rivalry, and typically is the highest rated regular season game despite the records, regardless of what they are. Michigan hosts this year. Last time they went to Columbus, of course, is a 4-point favorite. And if you made any kind of metric measurement on their performances, the two teams against common opponents, Michigan was the more dominant team, played the better season. I don't know that they were the better team, but they certainly played better for 11 games, and then it came crashing down in Columbus. Any reason to believe that this particular Michigan edition is more prepared against this elite Ohio State squad?
Well, no, not really. It's the typical stuff that's going into the game. I'm in the mindset now that if Michigan is going to beat Ohio State, I'm going to have to see it to believe it. I had expectations that they would go into Columbus and win last year. I had expectations in 2016. Neither of those happened, so they're 0-4 in the Jim Harbaugh era against Ohio State. I'm now under the impression of the see it to believe it side of the fan base. They do have a chance, though. Shea Patterson, quarterback, he's playing his best ball the last 2 games. He's thrown for over 300 yards, which are the first 2 times that he's done that at Michigan in impressive fashion through several touchdowns against Michigan State and Indiana. He's finally getting locked in with those receivers, Nico Collins, Donovan Peoples-Jones. The offense is firing. So it'll be interesting to see them and see how they play against the number 1 passing defense in America with Ohio State.
The narrative is consistent under Harbaugh, but if you take game by game, I think there's a different narrative to each game. The 2015 Ohio State team had underachieved to that point, but they were basically an NFL team, probably the most talented team in the country, and they just waxed Michigan with Ezekiel Elliott running wild, and that was a really good Michigan team that went on to finish in the top 10 in the country. The 2016 game, in defense of Jim Harbaugh, the measurement could have gone the other way. Michigan's playing in the Big Ten championship game as a huge favorite, and they're probably in the playoff. 2017, Ohio State's decidedly better. Michigan had a down year. 2018, Michigan played the better season. Ohio State showed up in Columbus, and here we come to 2019. So, Von, what happened at Penn State? A lot is being made of what Jim Harbaugh said at halftime. Shea Patterson and the offense came out, and I got to hand it to this Michigan team because they looked mentally weak and beaten down against Wisconsin. Big game. They go to Camp Randall. They just look like they're just stunned and they're just beaten down and they just give up. They start the game against Penn State like that, and it had every reason to fold against a whiteout, a really good team on the road. Okay, it's 21-0. Here we go again. No, they pull it in. They show resiliency. They get themselves back in the game. Unfortunately, the touchdowns dropped by Ronnie Bell in the end zone. But then they show resiliency again. You would think, oh, we gave it our best go, and it doesn't work out again. They come back against the top 10 team the next week at home against Notre Dame, and they wax Notre Dame. They whacked an Indiana team that had Penn State down to a fight in the last few minutes. They're just playing so much better instantly.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how that all happened. because, like you said, when they were at Wisconsin, and they even admitted it too, the players did that. When they looked up to the scoreboard and saw 21-0, and then it became 28-0, and you don't even have any points at halftime, it's kind of you just shut down at that point. That's what they had admitted, and that's what just happened. And they ended up kind of making a small comeback there towards the end, but it was all too late for that. At Penn State, that was a really interesting one. I was at that game, and you could just see it on the field, see it on the sidelines, that they somehow, some way, and I don't know what exactly happened, but a fire just sparked under the entire team. And they were picking up a lot of third down conversions. You go back and it seemed like they were picking up every single third down conversion. They were actually getting the speed and space that Josh Gaddis had promised when he came to Ann Arbor. And they were actually getting the wide receivers involved. Ronnie Bell had a really big game. Nico Collins and Peoples-Jones, they were getting involved in the offense a little more. And it was before that game that Harbaugh had mentioned that they were hitting their stride as an offense. And they started to in that second half against Penn State. Again, it was just an all too late situation for them to come back, and they'd given up some big plays on defense. But that second half against Penn State is really what's led to this turnaround, to them whacking Notre Dame at home, to them pretty much blowing out every single team that they've played after that Penn State game. And now Ohio State comes into town, and they have expectations of putting more points on the board and making it a competitive game, unlike last season in Columbus.
Christmas is coming, folks. Shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section below. You help us build the channel that way. If you enjoy the content that we provide every day on the sport we all love, college football. We got Von Lozon on the line. You can catch him and the rest of the crew there at Maize and Brew, SB Nation's platform for Michigan athletics. Of course, we're talking football and arguably the best rivalry in college football, in all of sports, possibly. Michigan, Ohio State. So Ohio State can make a claim as being the best team in the country. They're elite at about every position. They had issues at linebackers the last couple of years, and even that unit's excelling this year. When you look at Michigan, and not to discard Michigan's talent at all, top 10 talent across the board, especially the DBs, the wide receivers are elite. It's arguably the best offensive line in the Big Ten, and on and on and on. Where do you think, and this is difficult to find and a weakness for the Buckeyes, but where do you think Michigan may be able to take some sort of an advantage?
Well, they had some fumbling problems last week against Penn State. The ball was getting onto the ground more often than not, and Penn State capitalized, and that's what led to their small little comeback there in the second half. So if Michigan's able to force some pressure on Justin Fields, keep him in the pocket, make him throw the ball, and if they can get a sack or two or whatever and get the ball on the ground and recover it, I mean, that would be definitely a good way to take advantage of that. Force turnovers, get pressure on the quarterback. That's how you're going to have to beat Justin Fields in Ohio State. He's a great quarterback. He even if you keep him in the pocket, he's got 33 passing touchdowns. That's the most in the Big Ten. He's been a Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback all season long. He's right up there with Joe Burrow and those guys. He's a great quarterback. As a sophomore, and with him transferring to Ohio State, learning a new offense under a new head coach at Ohio State, they've performed a lot better than I anticipated, and I expected them to play well, but they've been playing at an elite level all season long. They're 11-0 for a reason. They've been putting points up on the board. The entire team is really, really good. One of the best that I've seen in the last 5 or so years. It's going to be a big challenge. Michigan's going to have their hands full this weekend for sure.
When you said all season, Vaughn, you kind of underlined that, because I think that's key, is that I thought the same thing. I thought this is an elite roster, maybe the best in the country, but new head coach, new quarterback's going to take them a while to get into it. They may lose a game, may lose 2 games early. People were hyping Nebraska. They got to go on the road, and Ohio State typically falls asleep once a year, that sort of thing. But no, they've played every game complete start to finish. When you look at Michigan, though, a lot of people, college football being a regional sport, watch their team. That's pretty much it. Watch their conference, but they watch this game and make it special. Who are some of those Michigan players? We know about Shea Patterson. Some of those players on both sides of the ball that you really want to spotlight as really emerging this season as top players in the Big Ten or nationally.
Well, on defense, I would say Josh Uche. He's kind of a hybrid linebacker, pass rusher. He's been really, really good this year. He was a pass rushing specialist last season. He would come in on third down and just rush the quarterback, and he led Michigan in sacks last season. I believe he's leading Michigan again in sacks this year, but you see him more often than not. He's not just rushing the passer anymore. He's a Sam linebacker more often than not. There was one play against Penn State where he was pretty much one-on-one against KJ Hamler, and he forced a pass breakup there against Penn State last month. It was a really, really great play that I did not expect to see happen, especially given his role in the defense last year. He's been really good. Aiden Hutchinson, also defensive end. He can do it all. He's got, I think, 6 or 7 pass breakups as a sophomore defensive end. Really, really good. He's really got great instincts, football IQ. He's really good. On the offense, I would lean toward the two-headed monster of running back, Hassan Haskins, Zach Charbonnet. They've been really good. Zach Charbonnet has been great all season long, but Haskins really emerged the week before Penn State is when he really had his coming out party, and then followed that up against Notre Dame as well. Had over 100 rushing yards, played really, really well, and he's been on the scene pretty much ever since then. So their run game has been really good, and their defense, all facets of it, has been really good too. So this is going to be a pretty interesting matchup here, I think, Mark.
Yeah, if I remember with Haskins, he was recruited as a running back, moved to linebacker,
yes,
then was switched back to running back. And I think you're alluding to the Illinois game. I caught most of that game. Illinois made a comeback. Michigan held them off. That he broke free, and all of a sudden it was like, who is this guy? Why hasn't he gotten the ball? And I look him up, and I see the stats every week. He's getting 2 or 3 carries, and then all of a sudden they decide to give him the ball. And now they've got a formidable running game where at one point it looked like, wow, Zach Charbonnet is a true freshman. Do we want to give this kid the ball? What was it, 32 or 33 times against, I believe, Army? Is he going to be able to hold up? And suddenly, boom, they've got another capable running back, and they're in good shape in a running game that they boast one of the best offensive lines in the country. When you look at Jim Harbaugh, I was asked this question yesterday, Vaughn, how I thought it was worded incorrectly in regards to a win or a loss. I was asked, if Jim Harbaugh loses this game, what does it do for his perception or Michigan's perception? And I thought it doesn't do anything. Their perception stays the same. As here's a guy, if we're being logical. Now, obviously there are haters out there that think he's not doing the job and he's a bum and needs to be run out of town. My perspective on it, and I defend him quite a bit, is that he's upgraded the program significantly. Now, is he being paid to win championships? Yes. So he eventually needs to do that and do it pretty soon. But he's upgraded the program significantly. They're one of the best 10 teams and programs in the country easily. They've not won the elite game, and this is pretty much it. It's Ohio State. Sure, they've had their issues with top 10 teams across the board, but it's pretty much Ohio State. Other than that, they get to the Big Ten championship game a number of times. So this is going to define him eventually. But in regards to where you stand on his tenure, his performance, what he needs to do going forward, even if it doesn't work out this year, what needs to happen in the next couple of years and what you expect?
Well, I expect a win against Ohio State at some point. He's got to get around to doing that. He's had a few good chances. I think that 2015 team really had a good chance, but they were only down by 3 or 4 points at halftime of that game, and then Ohio State rolled out of that second half and just laid down the hammer. In 2016, got really, really close, and the perception of everything would be changed had that went another way, had the spot been different. Had they just not even went to overtime, had they just got another touchdown or another field goal or whatever, and they just win the game, move on, and you got one win against Ohio State. But it's still same result, same song dance pretty much. 0-4, and if he goes 0-5 against Ohio State, if they lose this weekend, it's going to take another half decade for him to just get 500 against Ohio State. So you got to get this win eventually. You're at home. You got a top 10 team. Your offense is finally emerging. Your defense is shutting down opponents pretty well. This is a good chance. Even though Ohio State is a juggernaut, no team is undefeatable by any means. I think they can get this win. They just really need to be mentally tough and hone in on what they need to do and limit the mistakes on offense for sure.
And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how the results go, one game in college football means everything. Almost, it's just that kind of sport where you need to be near perfect if you're at a place like Michigan. And if they don't win this game, even if they win a postseason game, then it's going to take an entire year. Even if they do everything right between now through the off season and win all those games, everybody's still going to say, "Well, wait till you get to Columbus." So this is obviously huge for Michigan, even though there are no championship implications for the Wolverines, and maybe that favors them playing loose and fancy free and just cut loose and let it go. While Ohio State, if it's close late, maybe they get tight, understanding the ramifications that it could cost them a playoff appearance, even though they're headed to a Big Ten championship game. Vaughn, we appreciate you stopping by and encourage everybody to head over to SB Nation's Maize and Brew with Vaughn Lozon and the rest of the crew there covering Michigan football. I assume you're going to have your prediction there very soon.
Yeah, we'll have some preview stuff out. We'll have some predictions and things like that, and we'll have a tailgate in Ann Arbor as well. So if you're going to be in Ann Arbor, come on down to Pioneer High School. We'll be down there. Me and Anthony Broom, our team site coverage leader. Should be a good time.
Thanks, Vaughn. Enjoy the game.
Thanks, Mark.